welcome to Totally Schway, a podcast about the DCAU. My name is Mary.
And my name is Luke.
And today we're not talking about Cape Crusade.
Yeah.
So I make that joke because over on my channel, which will be linked down below, we did an episode of Totally Schway Flipside for each episode of Batman Cape Crusader. And they were all released the same day, same time. You can go over there and have a listen if you haven't already and get my viewership up. But also it's quite nice just to have a little chat amongst friends. And yeah. So before we get on to the topic of today, which we've changed a little bit. It's still the same, but a little bit different. We've added a little bit to it. Luke, do you have any news?
Yeah, I do. So, Mary, you kind of covered the first piece of news, and that's Batman Cape Crusader is out now on Amazon Prime Video.
That's right.
You can watch my review on my channel. I think most of you that listen to this probably will have already watched it, so thanks for those that did.
You're welcome.
And as Mary said, we did one episode of Totally Schway Flipside for each episode of Cape Crusader. I recommend watching the show first and then coming back and listening to each episode of the podcast to hear what we had to say. Mm-hmm. Join the conversation in the comments. Mary and I aren't going to be reading out the comments from those special episodes because there's just too many of them, but we are responding in the comments. So
that's right.
The conversation is ongoing.
I might not be responding every day because I work, not at home. But I will respond. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So also last week, between the episodes of our podcast, San Diego Comic-Con happened. And there were some DC Animated Universe related announcements. The first one is that Mondo are releasing a whole bunch of Batman the Animated Series action figures. These are their, 1/12 scale? No, I don't know.
1/6 scale.
Is it? No, those are Todd McFarlane ones that are 1/6.
My bad.
The Mondo ones, they're basically a foot tall.
Yeah, they're big uns.
At least a foot tall. And they are releasing over the next sort of 6 months or so 3 Batman the Animated Series villains: Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, and Clayface, and a Batman Beyond figure. So it's going to be a very expensive year for me. Also need to find some more space. They are really high quality premium figures. They come with some wonderful accessories. The the Scarecrow figure comes with a little Joker rat from Dreams in Darkness, as well as multiple heads. Dare we hope for the Scare Beastie type Scarecrow face from Fear of Victory? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? And I've been told that the Clayface figure comes with a huge number of accessories like arms and heads. Apparently, someone told me that there is also a different body piece that has Batman's head sticking out of it, so you can recreate that scene from Mudslide if you really want to.
Damn.
Don't know if that's true. I've not seen pictures of it, but I was reliably told this, so that's going to be cool.
I can believe that.
Yeah, and Poison Ivy comes with her little plant babies from House and Garden.
The babies.
Yeah. Keeping it on the topic of action figures, old Todd McFarlane, the Todd Father, has been and ravaged our wallets once again. So he's got a re-release of the DC Collectibles Batwing figure. This thing is absolutely massive. It takes up most of my closet space. And it's coming fairly soon. It's coming in fall, I think, or in the autumn for Europeans.
I was about to say, since when did you speak American?
I was just reading the advert for it. And also there's a new wave of Builder figures. So this one includes Batman the Animated Series versions of Two-Face, Christmas Joker, Batgirl, Lightning Strike Batman. That's a deep cut reference to the Kenner old 90s action figures. Basically a black Batman costume with white lightning strikes all over it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have that one?
I do have that one, yes. He had a hard plastic cape that wrapped around him as well, which was my favourite thing about it, because you just cover him up and it looked like he was in silhouette.
Nice.
But the builder figure is none other than Maxi Zeus. So,
what an obscure character.
well, that's what he's doing with the builder figures.
I love that,
Yeah,
though.
they're taking characters that they don't think would... there's not enough demand to release them separately. And they're just saying, all right, if you're a hardcore collector and you're going to collect all of these, then we'll give you an extra figure.
Yeah.
They did Lock Up and the Condiment King previously.
I remember
Now they've done Maxi Zeus. They're also doing Bruce Wayne in that other line of figures.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
Honestly, what a great idea, because then you're like, oh, I don't want just the head, the abdomen, and one leg. I want the whole thing of Zeus.
Yes.
And then you get that, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I should look more into this character, and then boom.
That's how
It's
Todd
marketing.
McFarlane works. Yeah, that's how he gets us.
Now, Todd,
Todd.
I have some beef with you.
Oh, good. Because we know he's listening, right, Todd?
Yeah, Todd.
Say nothing if you're listening.
I know we're on first name basis. My name's Mary, by the way, and I'm one of the anchors of this program. Where's my Teen Titans figures?
Maybe
My
one
Teen
day.
Titans go.
Ooh.
That's what that's the beef I have, is that you've not announced this. I'm waiting.
Years ago, he did do a Teen Titans Cyborg, but that was the only Teen Titans figure, I think. And just to close out this news, because I'm conscious of time, sorry to cut you off, his last figure that's coming out is a Batman Beyond. At San Diego, they did an exclusive Old Man Bruce Wayne with Ace the Bat Hound, which I somehow managed to get one.
What?
I know I entered in a raffle on Todd McFarlane's site and I
Oh, I
won.
didn't know that. You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, well, I was a surprise.
Oh, that's awesome. Because as y'all would know, that I love old Brucey and I love Ace. Mm-hmm. So, that's cool. I didn't know that.
That's cool. I don't know if there's going to be a wider release of the Bruce Wayne or if he'll just do a 2-pack like the old DC Collectibles one. But that's basically all of the news.
Yeah, and you did it in the time frame that I gave you.
Almost.
Yeah. Well, we were off about 7 seconds. I gave him 5 minutes, and I'll take it. I'll give you the 5 minutes, because I did about I don't know how long I did when I was talking about my beef. So today's episode was originally going to be about just our favorite directors. Now, with that, we could just talk about the directors of this show, that show, this show, and our favorite episodes and stuff like that. But we're thinking, hey, let's just, for this particular episode, do Batman the Animated Series. And let's also do one of my favorite people, the casting director.
Okay.
So, the first person I actually want to talk about is... I don't know why I like talking about him so much. He just seems like such a cool guy. Kevin Altieri.
Okay.
I think honestly it's his last name. I love how that comes off, like Altieri. Mm-hmm. If I'm saying that correctly. He has directed so many of the great episodes. Like Dan Reba, Kevin Altieri, Boyd
Kirkland.
Bruce
Timm, Eric Radomski. Yeah.
Brucey T. Oh my goodness. Love you. I know we've had some things in the past, but I'll always love you. You're number 5 on my MySpace friends list.
Now there's a reference.
But let's talk about Kevin Altieri, which I've written down a few, even though there's probably more than could fit in my journal. Cat in the Claw, Harley's Holiday, Harlequinade, mm-hmm. Two-Face, Part 1 and 2.
He also did Feet of Clay,
Yep.
Part 2. Mm-hmm. Night of the Ninja.
That's right.
Heart of Steel, Part 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Eternal Youth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, that's one of my favorites.
Showdown.
Like I said, he has done in my opinion, some of the most famous episodes and the most well-known episodes. And it's so cool because there has to be a reason that these episodes, you know, the storyline, the direction, the voices, all of that are just spectacular. But it comes down to the unsung heroes. So people like Kevin Altieri,
Mm-hmm.
Andrea Romano, obviously the voice cast, we know a lot of them, but we're talking about the writers and people like that.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, those are the people who don't wear the capes who are the heroes, because they brought us this and they worked very hard to get us here. But today we're going to talk about a few of those people.
Yeah, so I feel like we might be preaching to the choir a little bit with our
yeah,
audience.
God, yeah.
Because these, I assume anyway, dearest listeners, that you're not the kind of people that go, oh yeah, there's Batman the Animated Series by Bruce Timm, or, you know, the Dini Timm verse. Now that's not to say that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini didn't have huge contributions.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely made tremendous contributions. Wouldn't have been the same show without them. But it's also equally true that the show would not have been the same without, say, Andrea Romano, Kevin Altieri, Randy Rogel, Alan Burnett, Eric Radomski, even Brad Rader. Some of my favourite shots in my favourite episodes, turns out that Brad Rader staged them. He determined how, you know, where the camera was going to be placed. He came up with the shot. Now, obviously, he's working in concert with the rest of his team. But all of these things that, you know, you might just think, oh, yeah, well, the director came up with that. And, yeah, you know, to a certain extent, yeah, that's true. But it's a collaborative team effort. It's not just one guy dictating everything. At least it isn't on Batman the Animated Series. Now, there are some projects where, you know, the storyboard artist or the character designer is just, what's the expression? It's something like the wrist of the writer. You know, you've got to follow the script 100%. But I would say that Batman the Animated Series was very much an art-driven show. That doesn't mean it didn't have great writing, because it did, but the art came first. And case in point, you have episodes that are directed by Kevin Altieri. Now, I think in some regards, he was viewed as being a fixer, in that he was given scripts that were difficult, and he was told, make the best of this that you can. So what I mean by difficult scripts, it might be that they were overlong.
Yeah.
It might be that, you know, they didn't have like a clear enough, concise enough ending. It might be that the dialogue was just, there was just too much of it. Case in point, Feet of Clay Part 2. So the famous example that Kevin always brings up is the interrogation scene with germs in the sample room. So when Clayface comes in dressed as a guard, he tries to take germs away. Batman says, hang on a minute, and then Clayface knocks him out and then drags germs away. Apparently in the original script, Clayface comes in as the guard, says, good going, Batman, I'll take it from here, and leads germs away. Batman sits there for a minute and goes, hang on a minute, there was something wrong with his uniform. The badge. His badge was non-standard issue. Wait a minute, and then chases after him, going, wait up, you're not a real security guard, and chases Clayface through the streets of Gotham. So Kevin came in and got out his big red pen and just went, no.
Yeah, he was, not only was he a director, he was also an editor too.
In a way. And, and that kind of, there were arguments with the writing team about this. You know, he wasn't massively popular with Martin Pascoe and Michael Reeves, I gather. At least that's what he tells me. But what he did was far simpler.
Yeah.
Batman says, hold on a second. Clayface just knocks him out and then takes germs up to the roof, because he's just going to throw him off the roof. He doesn't need to, like, drag him away through the streets and, you know, have some sort of intricate, lengthy chase.
Yeah.
Just cut it straight to the point. And Kevin often jokes that, you know, the biggest contribution he makes to the episodes is he finds ways to put more explosions in. So, like in Two-Face Part 1, during the therapy scene where there's a flash of lightning and you see a brief flash of Two-Face's face on Harvey Dent. He added that. That wasn't in the script. The whole ending of Heart of Steel Part 2 is completely different. And actually, Kevin's first draft was very different as well. And I've talked about that before with the duplicate Batman turning up to fight instead. Even then, it was still too long, so they just simplified it and go, all right, Batman crushes Randa, Hardak explodes. The end. Job done.
And sometimes simpler is better. It's like when people, when some chefs cook, overcomplicating the recipe will make people not like it because there's too many things going on. So what Kevin has done here is he's taken some of those ingredients out that might overcomplicate something.
Yeah.
And he's made it fit. And he's been the best chef.
Yeah.
Yes, chef.
And I mean, Kevin is my favourite director from Batman the Animated Series, no doubt. It's because he also had a very good team working for him. Someone like Mike Gogan. Mike Gogan doesn't get mentioned enough, but I've seen his storyboards for Feet of Clay Part 2, and they're excellent. You could tell that guy really cared, right? And Kevin did tell me that he moaned a little bit about having to come up with like animations for Clayface. Like, was he going to use an axe hand? He's going to use a hammer hand. But the end results were fantastic. And, you know, Dan Reber also contributed towards this by working on some of the designs for the faces that Clayface would turn into in the TV room. TV room? You know what I mean? The broadcast room at the end where he's having his meltdown. The point I'm trying to make there is that it's not just... I don't want to go, it's not all Bruce Timm, it's all Kevin Altieri. That's not what I'm saying at all.
No,
it's a collaborative effort from dozens of people. People like Glenn Murakami as well. Glenn Murakami is a very significant figure in later DC shows in particular, but also in Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series was, I think, his first professional job. I believe he said he'd worked in a comic shop prior to this. But, you know, he was taken under Bruce Timm's wing, and he's really flourished. You know, he's responsible for shows like Teen Titans, and by extension Teen Titans Go, which I know not everybody loves, but we love.
So Kevin Altieri, in terms of me talking about the show, and when you say it's collaboration, I'm gonna say it right here. I don't think Batman the Animated Series would have been what it is today without Kevin. And I don't think it would be the same without Dan Reba, and I don't think it would be the same without Brucey T.
No, of course it wouldn't, of course. If you just look at the new Batman Adventures, that was a show that was made without Kevin Altieri, without most of his team.
Yeah.
Dan was still there. Boyd Kirkland was no longer there. Dick Sebastian, Frank Power, they'd gone as well. Frank Parr. I think I've said his name wrong there. Sorry, Frank. It was basically the Superman team. And, you know, I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm not saying it's bad by any means. It's just different. It's not the same. And it really illustrates that point.
So let's get back to Kevin.
Okay.
So what is your favorite episode that he did?
Two-Face Part 1. Easy.
Can you guess mine?
You
know what mine is. We've talked about it before.
But by Kevin?
Yeah.
You're going to have to remind me.
Harley's Holiday.
Oh, Harley's Holiday. I was thinking Harlequinade.
No. Harley's Holiday, because I love I don't know, I love everything about that episode. I love I don't know, like, the one thing to talk about would be just obviously the storyline, but also the scenes, as in how the scenes were
staged.
Staged, yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have a husband that knows what I'm trying to say.
It was almost farcical, some of it.
Yeah.
Like that final scene in the car where Harley and Veronica Vreeland are in their car and they've got like 4 or 5 different targets coming towards them, like the General's tank, Harvey Bullock in his smashed up car, Boxy Bennett in his truck, and they all just collide.
Yeah.
And it's tonally very different. It was very funny. It was also tragic, but it was still funny.
But it was I say this sometimes on this podcast. It was a breath of fresh air. And I loved that, because sometimes we need to have that breath of fresh air in the middle of all the tragedy, the doom, the gloom, the bad guys, all of that. Yes, there are bad guys in this, but it was just so... It was different, and it was a nice different, and although you still had the bad guys and the doom and gloom and the tragedy, it was still just refreshing to watch. Yeah.
So I would like to bring someone up that I think is an unsung hero.
All right.
Ted Blackman.
Okay.
So Ted Blackman basically designed the look of Gotham City. He was the head background designer. Mm-hmm. He set the tone. Now, Eric Radomski kind of did this impressionistic painting of what he thought Gotham could look like, which was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But it's Ted that came along and just defined how the city looked. And that's kind of why the cities just never quite looked as good in the other shows. Now, that's not to say they look bad. They just look different. Mm-hmm. Metropolis was a very nicely designed city as well. There's nothing bad about it at all. Same with Future Gotham. But when Ted Blackman came back and did the backgrounds for Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, there was a real difference in the quality of the city. Yeah. Yes, yeah. And he's someone that seems quite... I'm not going to say reclusive, and not just because he doesn't talk to me when I try to. But he doesn't really get mentioned an awful lot. Now, Bruce Timm gave him a shout-out in the Batman animated book, saying, he was one of the first people he mentioned, which is great, obviously. But when we see people talking about, unsung heroes of these shows, he's very rarely brought up. And I just think the design of Gotham is it's just so wonderful. It actually feels like a real place. It looks like a real place.
It really does. With
visible neighborhoods. And this is like a really pretentious thing to say, and I always hate it when people do this, but Gotham does actually feel like a character in the show.
It is a character. It doesn't just feel like it. Gotham is a character. In Superman, for example, we all know I love Superman the animated series. I don't feel like Metropolis is as much of a character as Gotham, because it would be such a different show if it weren't for the Gotham that we have.
Yeah.
Or that we had with Batman the animated series.
Yeah, and again, to compare it with the new Batman adventures, which Ted did not work on, the backgrounds just became less important. There were just like large black shapes in the background that you didn't really pay too much attention to in a lot of episodes. It still kept a lot of the same look as Batman the animated series, but it wasn't as significant, I'd say. Or at least to me, it didn't seem that way. Other people may feel differently, and that's totally fine.
So, you want to name some episodes that Dan Reba directed?
Baby Doll.
Yes. Trial.
Lock Up.
Okay. Name some more.
Riddler's Reform.
Yes.
So Dan effectively replaced Dick Sebast when Dick Sebast left for some reason. Apparently, well, I won't get into like personal details, but other projects came up that he would prefer to work on, so he left. And that left a void in the creative team in terms of directors. So Dan kind of came in and finished off some of his episodes, and then he started directing his own episodes. And that included directing a sequence or two in Mask of the Phantasm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think Dan is the most prolific director across the entire DC animated universe. I think the only thing he didn't work on was, well, I suppose Sub-Zero and the Zeta Project. Don't think he worked on Mystery of the Batwoman. But if we just stick to the main TV shows, it's the Zeta Project's the only one he didn't work on. Mm-hmm. He did. I know we're focusing on Batman the animated series, but he did a ton of the new Batman adventures, Batman Beyond, Superman, Justice League Unlimited.
So Dan is my favorite, one of my favorites, excuse me, because Kevin's my favorite for the animated series.
They're both your favorite.
But for another show, Batman Beyond, that would definitely be Dan.
Yeah.
I love Batman Beyond. I love the intention that the creator set with it, and I love the end product. Like, I absolutely love it. I love the fact that we have some obscure characters, great storylines, and the direction was just perfect in most episodes.
Yeah. Yes, Dan has got very good comic timing.
Yes.
If you think about Trial, that was a very funny episode in places. I'll always think of the Mad Hatter's testimony, where the Mad Hatter talks about his origin, and Janet Van Dorn says to him, well, you know, you always could have just respected Alice's wishes and left her alone. And then he jumps up and goes, I'd have killed her first. oh, I'd like that stricken from the record, please. And then the Joker's like, record? Is someone supposed to be writing this down? Now, I know that that's from Paul Dini's script, and also the performances as directed by Andrea Romano, but it's the animation as well that really helps play up that joke. It's just the expressions on the Mad Hatter's face. Like when he realises what he said, he kind of puts his hands over his mouth and is like, hoo, hoo, like he's, you know, accidentally just smashed a glass, you know, that kind of expression someone makes.
That's me every time I do anything. Like, ah!
And it just works perfectly. And at the same time, he's been responsible for some really tragic stuff as well, like the ending in Baby Doll. That one just always gets people crying. And oh my God, don't even get me started on the flashbacks in Epilogue. Oh my God, oh my heart.
Those were some of my favorite parts of the entire show. Was Epilogue. Like, some of my favorite scenes were from that because of how beautifully they just, it was as if I was watching, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I wish it was, you know, nominated for an Emmy, but I don't know the whole ins and outs of all of that, but it just reminded me how important just particular scenes are. Because like you said, the flashbacks, when I think of Terry McGinnis, I think of those flashbacks.
Mm-hmm. But we're talking about Batman the Animated Series, not Justice League
Unlimited.
Unlimited.
I'm talking about Dan Reba here.
Okay, all right, it's fine. I'll allow it, Your Honor.
Let me talk about Dan Reba here, or let me listen to you talk about Dan Reba here. Let's talk a little bit about Baby Doll.
Okay.
What you could not change anything about that, could you? There's nothing that I would change about that episode.
No, I'll tell you something funny, though. I hope Dan doesn't mind me saying this, but after he watched my Baby Doll video, he mentioned to me, like, you know, when I was making that episode, I didn't realise that Baby Doll was trying to kill herself with that dynamite and Cousin Spunky. Mm-hmm. He said, then you pointed it out, and I went, oh, yeah. Oh, no, that's horrible. In a good way, obviously.
So I really liked how, without getting too personal, I really liked the way Baby Doll made me feel. And, you know, anybody can do a script. Not anybody can do a script, but anybody can direct a script. But the way that Dan directed this, when I watch it, I'm like, I felt that way before. Obviously, different circumstances and everything. But I think if somebody else would have written it, they probably would have gone more comedy, more explosions, this and that. And I feel that he really, really treated the characters with respect.
Yeah, it was a delicate balance between the comedy and the tragedy, and he got it exactly right. And, you know, again, it's a collaborative thing, because Paul Dini wrote the script, Dan Reba directed it, but he had a very talented team working underneath him. I forget who did the storyboards, other than the last section in the Hall of Mirrors. That was done by Ronnie Del Carmen. Ronnie Del Carmen moved on to work at Pixar, and I believe he directed, was it Inside Out? He directed one of the Pixar movies anyway. But they just completely nailed it in that episode.
Yeah.
It was, if you want to talk about, like, the perfect episode of Batman the Animated Series, I would probably point at Baby Doll. Mm-hmm. There would be others you could point to as well, like On Leather Wings. I would say Two-Face Part 1. Almost got him. But Heart of Ice.
I was about to say, like, you know which one you're forgetting, the one that actually won an Emmy.
Yeah. But Baby Doll is that same tier of episode, and it's wonderful. Now I understand for when they came back to do the Adventures of Batman and Robin, that, what was it, like 17 episodes, something like that, when they got renewed. Their intention was to do things differently, because they didn't just want to do another, you know, dozen or so episodes that were exactly the same as what came before. That's why they did stories like Showdown, that was set in the Old West, and Harley's Holiday, which was more of an absurd comedy. And House and Garden, which was an abject horror story. They basically, what I'm getting at is they were trying to diversify, and I think they really, really succeeded. And I think Baby Doll is probably, while it has that kind of absurd comedy to it, it's just perfectly balanced out by that raw tragedy, and that makes it kind of like, I think, one of the most perfect episodes of Batman the Animated Series.
I'm making an executive decision here and just saying, this Totally Schway is now a podcast just about Baby Doll.
Yeah. Join us next week where we'll talk about Love is a Crock. Oh no.
And then, the hair.
Yeah.
So let's, as much as I love Dan
Mm-hmm.
and as much as I love Kevin, I also love, you know who I'm gonna say, the one, the only, the beautiful casting director, Andrea Romano.
Yes, so all of these wonderful scripts and the wonderful art direction would have been undermined if the performances weren't up to scratch.
Yeah.
Now imagine they had traditional cartoon voice acting in any of these episodes,
Someone coming in and doing a voice like that, Batman.
Oh my God, Batman! What?
Yeah.
Oh no, because that was kind of like Baby Doll, but not really.
Yeah, imagine if the Joker sounded like this. Hello, everybody, I'm the Joker. Charlie Collins, I'm going to make you do me a favour one day. I haven't thought of it yet. Look at the size of the cake man. It just wouldn't have been as good.
That is not a pleasing thing to hear.
I know, that was deliberately so. So, something that both Dan and Kevin have told me, and I've read other people share this opinion as well, is that as directors, they very rarely had to chime in with opinions on the performances, because any notes that they had, Andrea had already thought of and had already accounted for it. She had a background in theatre, so she understood actors, and she's talked a lot about how she tried to hire voices with character rather than character voices, if that makes sense.
It really does make sense.
Yeah, so somebody whose voice is very recognisable. Somebody like, say, Ron Perlman or Mark Hamill, Paul Williams. Paul Williams has got such a wonderful voice. Perfect for the Penguin, I think. Some inspired casting there.
It reminded me of old Hollywood.
Yes, yeah.
It really did. And I think that's one of the things I love about the directors and the casting director and the creators of this, is they really made it feel like we were stepping back into the golden age of Hollywood.
Yeah, very much so, yes.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
And her decision to bring the cast together in person and treat it like a radio play so that they could react to each other.
Yes, like an RKO radio play.
Yes, yeah. Because obviously all the actors are very good. They could deliver their lines in a way that Andrea might have wanted. But maybe they might be able to come up with something slightly different, or maybe even something even better, based on their reaction to the way that one of the other actors speaks. And that's very true with Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy's performances against each other. You know what I mean? Opposite each other. They bounced off of each other. The more absurd the Joker became, the more stoic and firm Kevin Conroy became. He might have delivered a completely different performance if he had recorded in isolation. And you kind of see that in the Arkham games, because they often recorded most of those in isolation. And, I'm not saying that Kevin's performance in the Arkham games is bad, it's just not as good as his performance in Batman the Animated Series. And Kevin has said it's because he had long days sitting in the booth on his own, just saying the same lines over and over again. So, it's all, the method is just as important as the people.
Yeah. Truth. Okay, so I know we only spoke about 3 people, but I just want to say, and I'll say this time and time again, the unsung heroes of these television shows, these comic books, these video games that we all know and love, are the directors, the writers, the producers, the guys and gals that go out and get the coffees for all of these people. So whenever you're watching a TV show, just remember, respect.
Yeah. There's a reason why they're all credited. They're all partially responsible, and it wouldn't have been exactly the same show without them.
Yeah.
So,
because we all know there are some people that need their coffee in the morning. I'm not saying that I'm one of those people, but I'm one of those people. And I would definitely need somebody to either give me time to go get a coffee, make me a coffee, or go get a coffee for me. Most of the time it's Luke. So special thanks to Mary Mears' husband, Luke Mears. Shall we, we've given this some good talking, and I can have the I love Brad, Kevin, and Andrea fan club. I could be the president of that. And I think we all know and love them. But you know who I love more?
it's the person who left a comment on our podcast that said first, waited for people to say second, third, fourth, etc., and then deleted their comment.
No.
Yes, yeah, they did. I'm looking at them now.
I was going to say something very sweet.
Go on, say your sweet thing.
I was going to say our viewers and listeners. But that person that did say first.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go over to the comments then. So, Mary Susan Mia said second, which, without that first remark, this just seems weird.
That was the second comment.
Then we have, I'm not entirely sure how to say this name. It's spelled Aicek. Isaac. Isaac. I'm going to say Isaac, like Isaac. Said third. Well, technically you're second now. Next comment comes from a new commenter, or at least someone I don't recognise. Apologies if you've commented before and I've just forgotten. And that's Ty the Animan. Said Martian Manhunter is a certified goat. The dude is extremely overpowered. Even Superman is afraid of his strength. He is legit the most broken member of the team beside the Flash.
Truth.
Love this character because he's so wise, deep, empathetic, and strong-willed. One of the most unique superheroes I've ever known. Also, I absolutely love how he's cuckoo for chocos.
Yes. I agree with you about he's the most broken character. I think he might be more broken than I am. In terms of past trauma. I think that's the truth.
Let's move on to the next comment from Big Mikey P, Michael Andre Parlon, who says, "Don't worry, Luke. Mary isn't overshadowing you like she's read from overly sarcastic productions. I don't know, the fact that this is YouTube is why I'm liking this podcast. I'm not into Insta, the former Twitter, Facebook, and so on. I do have a Tumblr, though. Not everything I mention is obscure, though. I beg to differ. Just probably overlooked by basic DCAU fans."
That's the truth.
Yeah, basic.
That's the truth.
If not simply niche. I'm just one of those folks who's into multimedia and almost any genre, and I'm passionate enough to give shout-outs to them and can hopefully become your first exposure to said works.
And that's why we absolutely adore you.
Still not that huge of a fan of the Crisis on Infinite Earths films. I really hope the fans understand that the universes imploded aren't the mainline ones we know and love, for they're most likely parallel alternate realms. Poor choice featuring Super Friends and not either the Batman 2004, unless the show is actually deemed to be in the same universe as Teen Titans for some good reason, or Batman Brave and the Bold. At least those two shows have aged well and should be more beloved even to casuals. Speaking of the Mark Hamill voice controversy, we'll see how the guy himself reacts in public. He hasn't, which is very telling. Alas, I too can't go to the San Diego Comic-Con. Just gonna wait for certain online announcements, teasers, and news that should clog up the web algorithms. Yes, John's Forest Rescue was in Justice League Season 2, Episode 3 to 4, Tabula Rasa. Good, my brain has not turned to pudding yet. Can understand why you're not fans of Season 1, Episode 20 to 21, A Night of Shadows. Justice League was still learning its awesomeness curve during Season 1, but at least it beats the first season of X-Men Evolution and its unhealthy romantic plot tumours. Oh, and Etrigan is quite great, and I don't mind him not rhyming in the DCAU, though he does rhyme in his Batman Beyond Volume 2 tie-in comic appearance for some reason, because it's the tie-in comics and they had slightly different rules. See Scarface being unable to pronounce B's. An uncontested opinion, the DCAU benefiting lots on Kids WB and Cartoon Network compared to Fox Kids. Alright, Jean was also a wanderer seeking knowledge and empathy in the Justice League Infinity sequel comics to Justice League Unlimited, and was temporarily an old Indian woman there. Also, him still works for the guy on most occasions, in my opinion. However, it feels a bit off that said comic referred to him as wandering for years, which should feel off in case JLU ended on 2005 in universe, with Infinity possibly happening in either 2006 or 2007, the latter shortly before the return of the Joker flashbacks. How does 1 or 2 years refer to years? For it seems way too few. And then there's complications in cases that the Fatal 5 movie is also part of the DCAU canon, which would be set in late 2005 or sometime 2006. This is why you don't get too hung up on the timeline. Just let stuff happen. Kind of interesting how Carl Lumley ended up becoming a certain Falcon and Winter Soldier character for live action years after Justice League Unlimited ended. Reminded me how Michael Rosenbaum, aka the Wally the Flash West, became Smallville's memorable Lex Luthor. Sorry, Jesse Eisenberg of Zombieland and the Social Network fame.
Can I be honest?
No.
I don't mind Eisenberg, but you know who my favorite Lex Luthor is.
Clancy Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Wish John used his intangibility more. Always got annoyed every time he gets hit conveniently when he should have used said powers. What? They can only last an hour per day, a la Hourman's shtick. The unfortunate Thanagarian's name is Krager.
Oh, yes, Krager.
Based on Martin Landau's character in North by Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and his voice actor Hector Elizondo also played Hathset in Justice League Unlimited Season 3, Episode 11, Ancient History. He was also Bane in Mystery of the Batwoman.
And he was also one of the main characters of Pretty Woman.
And he was in Chicago Hope.
Yeah.
And you've seen him in Grey's Anatomy
Oh,
as well.
of course.
Anyway, this isn't the Hector Elizondo podcast.
That's next
This
April Fools.
this is the Michael Andre Parlon show. So
This is the Eric Roberts podcast.
32 minutes and 54 seconds. Interestingly, Bruce Wayne's outfit from there became Terry McGinnis's new look when interrogating the elderly Amanda Waller in Epilogue. Real strange the identities of Green Lantern, Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter being public knowledge. Speaking of Martian Manhunter, really hope the cut, yet still possibly canon JLU episode Misfortune Cookies featuring Jean's hijinks with an Oreo addiction gets a comic adaptation. Highly recommend reading it up, particularly from TV Tropes What Could Have Been page for the show. 33 minutes 52 seconds, and so it begins. Speaking of the Lord of the Rings radio drama, I've just watched the 6th episode, 7 more to go. Just looked up the revolutionary girl who tend shadow puppets in YouTube. Hope they're from the Japanese dub, not the overrated English. Meanwhile, Panty and Stocking are far better on the English dub, as an inverse.
I don't watch dubbed shows. I literally refuse. I don't like it. I like to watch it in its original language with subtitles. 36
minutes, 39 seconds. Oh yeah, forgot to mention Batman Returns as another example of a really good, dark, or even crazier sequel to the already great original. 38:32. Not how you pronounce Coraline. Highly recommend the Leica stop-motion film alongside Neil Gaiman book as a companion.
You mean Coraline?
I don't know.
It was Coraline, I think. With the button eyes?
I don't know. I wonder if Man on Fire has gotten critically redeemed nowadays. I'm actually a fan of Max Payne 3, which is loosely based on the film. 39 minutes 10. That's what I love about The Brave and the Bold. It basically succeeds more on doing certain spotlight storylines for obscure characters, where JLU didn't due to its limited 39-episode runtime. However, some may say that this led to a flaw that we didn't get enough spotlights for Wonder Woman and Green Lantern Hal Jordan. 40:19. A pseudo-romantic friendship. 41:7. Which Scooby-Doo show or movie is that from? I don't know. I don't watch Scooby-Doo.
I can't remember. Oh, I can't remember now. If I can remember later on today, I will put it in the actual comment.
It's probably What's New Scooby-Doo or something
I
like
think,
that. One of
yeah.
the more modern Scooby-Doos. Anyway, this isn't a Scooby-Doo podcast.
It's probably one of the older ones, actually.
Oh, I don't know what we're talking about. I thought we were talking about the Kevin Altieri thing. Doesn't matter. I'm moving on. 42:22. No, he actually did mention wanting to do dates with girls in an episode or two. Forgot which episode that got alluded to, though. 43:59. Let me rephrase that. I want a main villainous Queen of Fables for an all-ages, high-quality DC cartoon. Basically a show or movie that should get the same pundits as the DCAU Teen Titans, the Batman 2004, Batman Brave and the Bold, Justice League, Crisis on Two Earths, and so on. I won't mind the absence of Wonder Woman cartoon, for it means the absence of potentially cringy camp over political crap, not unlike what poor Batwoman received. Mikey P. I've not actually watched Batwoman, so I can't comment. 45:44. No, not her. She's as much a pariah as Toru Furuya and Alison Victorin. I'm so tired. Nowadays. Not basically Wonder Woman, but if there shall be an animated Wonder Girl involving an ensemble dark horse for a Wonder Woman series, she better be voiced by Mae Whitman. I don't know who that is, whom a lot of us know and love as Katara and Amity Blight. Okay. Does that mean Sarah Nicole Robles and Jack DeSena will be notable co-stars once more? Hair. Anyways, if one has to do Wonder Woman, she has to be surprisingly capable newcomer and not an A-lister celeb. Would prefer the ability over appearance trope in players seen with Diedrich Bader's Batman and the Jokers of Kevin Michael Richardson and John DiMaggio. 48-2, and then Wonder Woman 84 made her slightly unpopular as a downside. An ovarian. Gone too soon, Blue. Wait, it's been the podcast anniversary a few days since this comment's writing, typing. I don't think Gal Gadot's a war criminal. Similarly, flawed logic would mean Christopher Lee is a murderer due to his past espionage roles back in the actual Second World War. Well, he did talk a lot about how he stabbed people quite a bit, so you never know. He may have been Jack the Ripper as well. Who knows? He's dead now.
Who thought she was a war criminal?
I think we made a joke.
Oh.
I wonder how Wonder Woman would feel about the tale of Alderaan and Erendis. Purported favourite of Middle-earth character Elendil. I really don't know.
I think she'd probably like it. Honestly, being Wonder Woman, she'd love a good tale. She'd be able to tell people about it and think of some way to work it into why she's saving the person or people she's saving.
Favourite directors, possibly of any kind. If this goes beyond DCAU stuff, also, does this mean Andrea Romano, Akira Kurosawa, and Satoshi Kon are in it? Well, one of those three is applicable. And that's Big Mikey P's essay for the week done. Let's move on to the next comment from ProCow2274.
Can I read this one?
Yeah, okay.
So, ProCow2274. 8th.
And a cow emoji.
Yeah. Not all of us can be first. Some of us are second and 8th. And we love cows here. I don't eat cows, which is awesome.
And ProCow embraces their position in 8th. Well done.
Mm-hmm. As you should.
Lowell Lucas Jr. I'm going to merge these two comments together. Happy 1 year anniversary, Totally Schway. You all done great. Currently recovering from major eye surgery and wanted to play something fun and relaxing as I heal. Thank you so much for great content. Also, Luke, I'm a little sad you did read all my comments, even though you promised. I assume you meant didn't. I thought I did, but maybe I missed one. I apologise.
Luke.
I always look at Martian Manhunter personally as a far distant cousin of Superman. He's someone who understands being alone on a foreign planet, but someone he can relate to as well. I will say the Clarks did a damn good job in welcoming John and make him feel like a family. I think you mean the Kents. Or am I misunderstanding? Anyway, even though his grief is great, he is able to move on in life by finding another love on this planet, and even cats love being around. And during the holidays, he's just a great character.
God, I love Martian Manhunter. If I didn't say that enough in the episode, I love him. We're both foreign in this world.
Next we have Elfenlied, who says, could it be possibly that Mark Hamill gave permission to use an AI-generated version of his voice? That's the only thing I can really think of. James Earl Jones got credited as Darth Vader in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but he didn't actually voice Vader. It was an AI text-to-speech voice. So here's the thing. There is a YouTube channel out there. I think it's called something like The Hamill Who Laughs, who's basically dedicated to Mark Hamill's performances as the Joker. He's actually redubbed that section with an actual Mark Hamill AI. It sounds like the data's been polluted, a little bit with some Troy Baker in there as well. But it sounded nothing alike. To me, it sounded more like Nolan North was trying to do an impression. But I'm fairly certain that is not Mark Hamill, despite what some people say. Next, we have Time Lord Victorious. Don't have a lot to say as I'm a new fan and only watch Batman the Animated Series. I like the iteration of Martian Manhunter in Batman Strikes Again and in the Supergirl show.
Yeah.
Cool. Fair enough. Yeah.
Word.
Yeah, he was quite good in Supergirl. I seem to remember. I kind of dropped off after a couple of seasons because there were so many of those CW shows. It felt impossible to keep up.
How many of those are left?
Superman and Lois is the last one, I think. And that's finishing up soon. David Carney, hello David, says, for me, best live-action version of Martian Manhunter is David Harwood from Supergirl, speak of the devil, with Carl Lumley playing his father. It was a passing of the torch. What a beautiful ending for Kevin Conroy's Batman. It truly felt like an end of an era. Really enjoying the podcast.
So I've not seen the last episode of Supergirl. So if y'all talk about it in the comments, no frickin' spoilers. I'm just kidding.
Next we have Screen Wiper. Left a couple of comments, but I'll try and merge them into one. Says, been listening since the start. Happy first birthday.
Thank you.
I remember once at uni a lecturer for this race and gender studies module called the Xenomorphs from Alien and Martian Manhunter, when in his true form, phallic creatures. I suppose is kind of true a little bit, I suppose. Screen Wiper says, 55:15. I found myself quietly lamenting, oh, Blue, too. She really was an amazing animal who achieved so much, taught me so much, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Wilma and especially Betty took great care of Blue as her health declined, so proud of them. They had a lot of respect for her. After a horrible decline, I nursed Blue into feeling okay on her last day. The sun shone, and she had her daddy and foster daughters with her, and close until vet time. Blue behaved well and was very brave. She went out showing off her badassery one last time, as putting her to sleep required enough tranquilizers to knock out a small horse.
You go, lady, you go.
Neither I nor the vet have seen anything like it. I have good medical evidence suggesting that if I kept her going, her quality of life would sooner become bleak agony, and I probably saved her from a horrific death. I worry Blue felt betrayed by me euthanizing her, but I also know that she is ultimately trusting my judgment, even when not understanding my decision. Wilma and particularly Betty have been shook. Both mourned, but Betty especially so. For 3 or 4 days she displayed clear mourning behaviour. Breaks my heart to see my baby sad, but it also shows me what a sweetheart she is and that chickens do love. They both felt less safe without their mum, but with the sunny weather I've been in the garden to give them some reassurance. Betty's feathers are coming through, and Wilma has been getting her head around how she is now head hen. You're the deputy now, I tell her. You need to look after Betty and any other hens I get when I'm not out in the gardens. With great power comes great responsibility. Wilma has provided support to Betty in her grief, which I love, though sometimes she gets this look like she's going to pull out one of Betty's feathers. I tell her, no! And she reacts, so that's good. Without Blue around to keep her in line, I've got to do it more. Last night, Wilma alerted me to a mite resurgence in the coop. I listened and she watched me kill and remove them, inspected the coop after, and went to bed triumphant after our little bit of teamwork. She has the potential to be a great chicken captain, just needs more discipline. Thanks so much to everyone for their supportive comments and kind condolences.
Well, thank you for giving us the joys that are your chickens, because it really, really helps my mood. And I know that's such a selfish thing to say, but it gives me joy, and it really does improve my mood, and it makes me feel like I did with my duck and my rabbits and the cats that I have now. And it's so awesome to see that we're friends, but there are also other people out there that love animals just as much as us.
Yeah. Moving on, we have A1ML33Y, who says, I like John in Justice League in 2001 was like my intro to the character, and he kind of reminds me of the Vision from the Avengers comics I was reading in my teens in the early 2000s. But what really got me into John was reading him in Grant Morrison and Howard Porter's JLA run. I have complete in trade all 5 volumes, but I really like how Morrison written John, and his dynamic with the team of those comics made me like him more. I read his 90s comics version with Carl Lumley from JLU in mind, along with the rest of the DCAU actors. I mostly associate my favourite version of John with JLU, but the Morrison written John did fight rogue angels from heaven with Aquaman and Wonder Woman in 2 issues of JLA with Electric Blue Superman. I wish that was adapted into Justice League Unlimited for a 2-part episode. And Jean and the Justice League fighting the White Martians masquerading as superheroes in the first 6 issues of Morrison's JLA in 96-97. Another I wish was adapted into the DCAU. Grant Morrison's JLA was so good for being a late 90s comic. But I like how this DCAU version became very close to his fellow Justice League members during the Shadows run, and even up to when he quit the team near the end of JLU. That made me sad, but I was happy to see him in the last episode of JLU fighting alongside his friends. Oh, and one more thing I like about Jean when he's connected to the far future team Legion of Superheroes post-Zero Hour in the 90s, was a founder and financier of the Legion under the name R.J. Brand. He disguised as an older man. I like to think he's black, and I really like seeing Carl Lumley as Jean's father in the CW Supergirl show, and I like that he's black. I love the CW DC shows because they remind me of the DCAU shows mixed with the comics. Anyway, enjoyed the show, Mary and Luke. Keep up the good work. The DCEU Martian Manhunter didn't do anything helpful in the universe when Henry Cavill Superman snapped Zod's neck and destroyed Metropolis. Those DCEU movies are so terrible, I'm glad they're thrown in the dumpster fire festival when the Flash bombed. Also, Miss Martian is cool too. Love her in Justice League and the Fatal Five and in CW Supergirl.
He said something not great about my friend Henry. No, just kidding. Yeah, that was a bit of the Zod thing is it's just one of those things that I've looked and when I watched I ignore it. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, no, Zod is just frolicking somewhere in the galaxy and he's gonna pretend to be dead too. Yeah.
Next, we have play content. It says, I used to quite often hear people saying, I don't like Superman, he's too overpowered. But Martian Manhunter's arguably more powerful. I feel like people don't complain as much because Superman, as well as being powerful, is conventionally considered handsome, whereas Martian Manhunter isn't. Though John's is just as handsome, he's just let down by the fact he walks around wearing only underpants and a cape and boots, which is bad dress sense more than the fact that he's green. He could easily shapeshift into a better costume and chooses not to. I don't know what the point of any of this was, but I'm not backspacing what I've come this far. I mean, he's got a very unique sense of fashion, hasn't he? Next, Mr. Two-Face Guy. First time commenting, I think. Welcome, Mr. Two-Face Guy. This seems like something great to put on while I spend 6 hours getting round 100.
Love you.
Nothing else to add? Okay.
I love him. That's so great.
Next, we have Harry Fleur TV 666. Hello, Harry.
Hello, her.
Says, hello, Luke and Mary. I've been listening to your podcast in order and I've been enjoying them. I have a question. What's your opinion on Veronica Vreeland? I know she was kind of a bitch in her debut episode, Birds of a Feather, which I think is one of the weaker episodes. But in my opinion, I think she got a bit better when the show progressed. My headcanon is that she dumped Piers after what happened with Penguin, since she never mentioned him again. And I love for her to get a live-action role where her character develops from a selfishly entitled socialite into a generally good friend and ally to Bruce and Batman, either in the Matt Reeves Batman series or in a James Gunn DCAU. I know this question is kind of random, but I just think Miss Vreeland, who is my favourite supporting Batman character, doesn't get talked about very often. Sorry for the long post, and have a lovely day, you two. Edit. I personally think that Veronica Vreeland is the Brian Griffin of BTAS. You either love her or you hate her. Me, personally, I think she's good, and she's got a lot of potential as a lovable joke and loyal friend type character. Edit 2. Your title says episode 27. This is the 28th episode. Have a nice day. Did it really? Oh, no. I lose track.
We also did, like, from that day to right now, we've done, 12 episodes of different podcasts, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's easy to lose track.
Yeah.
But Veronica Vreeland, I don't really have a strong opinion on her, frankly. She's unpleasant in Birds of a Feather. She's kind of vapid.
That's the word I would use, vapid.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of vapid characters, but I am, and for a redemption arc, I do love a good redemption arc, so I do hope, just like yourself, that we do see her at some point.
I would argue that her best episode is Harley's Holiday, where she's Harley's hostage.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on. New commenter as well. Teo Jones says, I love Martian Manhunter. His voice is brilliant. Thank you, Carl Lumley. His backstory is compelling and his character growth is inspiring. When he made his big return in the finale of JLU, I was smiling from ear to ear. He not only helped save the world, but he found love during his time away. I'm so happy to see him find love again. He definitely deserved a happy ending after all the tragedy in his life. Now for the send-off for Kevin. It was a great send-off, but I really wish they got Mark Hamill to reprise. In my opinion, the fact that he has not said anything tells me that he was deeply hurt that Warners did not get him to act alongside Kevin Conroy, his best friend, one last time. And the DCAU Justice League just stand around and die while Batman dies fighting his arch foe. It just comes across as Warner Brothers not giving the Justice League any respect, but maybe I'm just reading too much into this. Maybe. Who can say? Not me.
Who can say? Not me.
We have Nightwing Man 666. There's a lot of people with 666 in their names. At least 2. Who says, long before this show, I read a few comics about him by John Ostrander. His backstory is more tragic, and yet he still is the most centered character despite all of his loss. As for Night of Shadows, he was still new to Earth, and the loss of his family and his people was still raw. He would feel to want that again, and him resisting Morgan Le Fay, not willing to subjugate Earth to the same fate that the Martians were, was a sign of strength for John. I agree. Overall, yes, I do agree. Next we have RDP16 Rules, who says, hello, Luke and Mary.
Hey.
Hello. I hope you're both doing well. By the time you read this, I'll probably be coming back home from Gen Con 2024. I'm going as a game master, and I'm very happy to ride in a plane for the first time, visiting Indiana for the first time, and to go to an event this big. Cool, that's very exciting.
That is awesome.
In addition, this is the beginning of an all-new side job. All in all, this is a blessing in my life. I'm telling everyone about it, and truly hope that you two have something equally important happen in your life soon.
I'm so happy to hear that, RDP. It is one of the most wonderful things in life to have friends that have great things happen to them. And I really enjoy hearing things like that. It literally makes me happy, and I'm so happy for you.
Now to talk about my favourite Martian, no, not the TV show, or the Jeff Daniels movie, Jean-Jeans, also known as the Martian Manhunter. This character has always been a favourite of mine. He's been on Earth for decades, seen some of the worst of it through the eyes of a minority. Even in the early days, it could be argued that he took on the guise of someone Irish, Italian, or possibly Jewish, and still maintains a willingness to help others. He is a hero not only to regular people, but to other heroes, and even to Megan. A member of the Martians who wiped out his people. Yes, she's a white Martian. This character has been host to so many good voice actors over the years. My personal favourite was Miguel Ferrer in Justice League The New Frontier. I can only hope that one day we will get a great live-action version of this character. Edit. If you get a chance, read the book Last Sons by Alan Grant. It's about Superman, Martian Manta, and Lobo being captured by a demented space collector. It's very good. And now for some hashtag Totally Schway questions. Number 1. Martian Manhunter can shapeshift into anything that he can think of. Many times it was another person, a serpent, or a dragon. If you could shapeshift, what would you turn into? I'd become a wolf for a little while. All right, Mary, what would you turn into?
Tiger.
That's a good one. I would turn into...
Oh, no, take it back. Eagle.
An eagle. Okay. I don't know what I'd turn into. Something inconspicuous.
No, take it back. Cheetah.
Cheetah. Assuming you get the abilities of the thing you turn into.
I just want to be pretty.
Wonder Woman uses the lasso of truth outside of every politician. Who do you think needs to be tied up with the lasso of truth? I mean, the politicians, absolutely. Outside of that, Jim Carrey. All because of Liar Liar.
I was about to say, Jim Carrey doesn't spark me as a person that is overly like mischievous or anything like that in terms of what he says to his fans. I don't know.
Well, who's your pick to be tied up with the lasso of truth?
Gilgamesh.
He can't speak.
And because I'll be like, go to who you love more. Well, he doesn't. We don't need the lasso of truth for that. It's Luke. I'm not sure. I don't know. Some of the like worst criminals in history that have cases that could be closed.
Mm-hmm. Where are the bodies?
Well, not just that. Like,
confess.
Yeah.
Last question. In Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool dances to Bye Bye Bye. Name a song and hero pairing that you would like to see. Personally, I want to see Plastic Man dance to moves like Jagger. This is an awful question for me because I don't listen to songs.
This is actually something I've thought
it's great
about.
For you.
It is awesome. So I know there's not like this huge love story between Batman and Wonder Woman, but you know the song Because You Love Me by Celine Dion? I want them to do an like mid-90s music video just in the middle of an episode. Or The Flash and All By Myself.
Aw.
Yeah. Just because it would be super funny.
All right, on to the last comment. And it's the Phantasm who says, hello, Luke and Mary. Before I talk about today's subject, I just wanted to know that I was planning on writing a comment about Martian Manhunter last time and how I thought of every DCAU character who has experienced loss. I felt that it was the most heartbreaking with John. I was also going to bring up how the feeling of being desperate to see your family again displayed in the episode of Night of Shadows was especially poignant for me because sadly I lost my grandfather a few weeks ago. As I was thinking about what to write, I kept thinking about him and couldn't bring myself to write it. Sorry for the sad statement. That's quite all right.
as we are humans, sharing things like that is hard, but going through it is worse. And sometimes sharing that helps. Believe me, I've been there, and it's shit. And it's going to feel like that for a while. And never, ever feel sorry about bringing that up. Because that was, I'm assuming, an important person in your life.
Now, in regard to the creative team of the DCAU, there are a great many people who have worked both in terms of writing, directing, and production in general. But I actually wanted to highlight someone who deservedly is praised, but doesn't always get the recognition I think she deserves. And I think that is the amazing Andrea Romano. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her work, not just in the DCU but everywhere, is monumentally influential and has touched so many generations. I remember years ago listening to an interview with Steve Blum, which he said, despite being spelled Blum, is actually pronounced Bloom. Oh, really? Steve Bloom. Okay. Oh, it's probably had an umlaut on the U at one point, but we don't do that in English, so Steve Bloom. While talking about his experience voicing the villain Ammon in The Legend of Korra, the first thing he mentioned was his incredible experience working with Andrea Romano, and immediately went out of his way to call her the greatest voice director of all time, and I think we're all inclined to agree. Specifically, when looking at the DCAU, so brilliant was almost every bit of casting across the board that in a lot of cases people would associate the voices of a lot of the DCAU characters as the definitive voice for said character, and even when they weren't, they were still holding high regard usually. Her keen eye for finding the perfect talent, or should that be keen ear, and working with actors was so spectacular that in a very rare cases that the casting wasn't exactly the best choice for the character, it was a bit distracting. Even then, that didn't mean that the actors did a bad job, but maybe they weren't necessarily the right choice for their characters. Instances like Ray Buchtennisser as Hugo Strange, sorry, I've mispronounced that, Charlie Schlatter as Flash, Melissa Gilbert as Barbara Gordon, and Tim Curry as Joker. Great actors, they may not have been... great actors, they may just not have been right for that specific role. And in the case of most of them, they were obviously recast later on with what are generally considered more iconic voices. I hope Andrea is enjoying her well-deserved retirement. One last thing I wanted to ask Luke, obviously it won't be for quite a while, but when you get to it, what would you like to be the first character you make a video essay about that is not in the DCAU, not counting Kate Crusader? 2 suggestions I think would be amazing are Sinestro from the Green Lantern film First Flight, or Professor Hugo Strange from the Batman. My first choice is Jack Nicholson's Joker.
My second choice and first choice and always and forever choice is going to be Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Okay. That's fair. All right, that's it. We're done. I'm out.
Oh,
My voice is gone.
Yeah, I had a bit of I got ill yesterday, so
heat stroke.
I ended up fainting at work. Shock horror. It's not that big of a deal, but pardon my voice going in and out. I just wanted to explain that I'm I hope by the next episode my voice will be back to 100. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope y'all have a great day. And if y'all ever need to talk, remember we've got an email address, and you can always message me and stuff like that. So love ya.
Well, we need to say what we're talking about next time.
I think it's time for you to pick this time.
All right, so I just looked in the YouTube inspiration section, which is where they used to call it research, but now it's just like this is what people are looking for related to your channel. And the first option that came up was Bruce Wayne. So we're going to talk about the development of Bruce Wayne.
Nice.
Yeah, I've kind of already done a video essay about that, but it'd be nice to have a more casual conversation.
It'll also be nice to talk about some characters in movies or TV shows that we might think have a little bit of Bruce Wayne in them.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. I love you guys so much, and thank you so much for listening. It's so awesome to actually call you guys friends, and we will speak to you next time. Why don't y'all head over, if you want to hear more of my voice, head over to my channel and listen to the Flipside episodes if you want to. If not, we've done some stuff about X-Men 97. And next week, we're going to be talking about Deadpool Wolverine.
Oh, yeah, we probably should have plugged that, shouldn't we? So we went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, and we really enjoyed it, and we're going to do a Flipside episode about it. Yeah.
All right. Have a great day. Bye. I interrupted you, sorry.
Bye.